Okay, good morning and welcome to the Strategy and Community Committee meeting for Tuesday the 13th of May. Health and safety. In the event of any sort of emergency, please leave via either one of the exits and we will congregate in the car park near the St John's building. We have not received any apologies for today's meeting. Thank you. Are there any conflict of interest declarations in regards to today's agenda? Okay, I'm just going to note just in regards to item 2.2, which is a submission on the sale and supply of alcohol. I'll just note my position on the District Licensing Committee. And thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to step back a wee second, I do have some contact from Councillor McPherson, who is trying to connect online. So we'll hopefully see her shortly. We are being live streamed, and as part of that process, we are being recorded. Any announced urgent business this morning? Great, thank you. Okay, confirmation of the minutes from the 11th of March, which was the submission day for the walking and riding strategy. So I'll just do a page turn, page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. As always. Right. Is there anyone of a mind to thank you, Karen. Thank you, Tom, for seconding. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Abstentions? Carried. Okay, and without further ado, we will move to item 2.1, page 12 of your agenda, and I welcome Claire to the table. This is the item on household rainwater collection that stems really from the long-term plan process and some submissions that we received back in. Welcome, Claire.
Madam Chair. As you're aware, there were 4 submissions on the long-term plan which related to this matter, and the council referred it to this committee who have requested this report. A number of officers have provided input to the report, and it's summarised here. As indicated in the paper, there are various reasons for and against household rainwater collection tanks. That's both at the individual household level and at the district level. The cost benefit analysis for this would depend on various factors. That would include which houses were included, the location of the property, the rainfall in that location, roof area, size of the tank, whether the ratepayer already had a pump, and the needs of that ratepayer. Any questions?
That was a very in-depth summary, thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I was obviously brought up in the old days where on the farm I grew up on, we had rainwater collection and it went into an underground tank, and when in drought times when we were short of water, I simply pumped up into the main tank and we drank it. Obviously that doesn't make potable water these days, but I did wonder whether water collected in this way, rainwater, could be made potable, like be treated and used for human consumption in like an emergency or drought times or whatever, like whether that's an option anymore.
In the lower North Island, the councils there have got together and actually been promoting very small rainwater collection tanks, about 200 litres, for that precise purpose. Resilience in emergencies. Obviously, there need to be household level rainwater treatment for that purpose.
So do you know what that entails and how much?
I'm afraid I don't. I could find out.
I just wondered because that would certainly support, I mean, make me more open to this as a resilience kind of option.
If it was only for use in an emergency, I mean, everyone's aware that boiling water makes a difference, and the chlorine tablets and we're talking about emergency use only. But of course, in terms of the requirements of Te Mata Arawai, we cannot be seen to be promoting that.
Great question though, Karen. Yeah, times have changed. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I can see the benefits of this, and particularly with new builds, I think it would be a really good advantage and a really good move. And I can understand that we can't impose requirements on existing house owners. I'm just wondering if we can actually make sure that if any existing houses want to build their own tanks, can we make that as simple and as quick as possible so that there is minimal restrictions on them doing it if they wanted to do it, and to existing properties, whether it be underground or overground, just making sure that it's a very quick, easy and potentially cheap process to go through if local residents want to do that.
The property manager advises that there's no requirement for a building consent unless the tank is above ground, and at what point that is triggered would then depend on the size of the tank and how far above the ground it would be.
So, through the chair, for clarification, at the moment, if you want to put a tank in, you can put a tank in. So if you want to use the water for your own domestic use or whatever, why are we getting involved with that? Buyer beware, do your own thing.
I think, Dave, this is in response to some suggestions and some feedback that we had through the submission process.
Understand that, but what are we trying to, I'm just trying to understand myself, what are we trying to achieve? Is it, it's not mandatory, you have to, or we're trying to make it mandatory, you have to put a tank in for new builds?
Well, I guess that's actually the question that's in front of us today, as we're being asked to recommend something to council. So, having considered this full suite of information.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we're talking, there's a separation between urban and rural, because, but I think on a principle, I really like the idea, and I know we tested it back in 2010 and there was no uptake, but I think the world has changed a little bit in the last 20 odd years, and I think there is probably more of a preparedness or a willingness to be prepared maybe for our urban dwellers particularly, and this is where I see this being beneficial. I quite like where there is an option on page 17, number 21, where it talked about at Tauranga City Council offered sort of rainwater harvesting workshops for their community, and I wondered whether that might be perhaps a good sort of test if we offered that, and I'm not sure how that would be played out, but it might actually give us an indicator as to whether there is a desire or interest for a new subdivision when they've got limited land, an underground tank, or but it would be for garden use is what I'm thinking about. And I just don't know enough about it. If there was a 2,000 litre tank on the corner of a small urban section, and it gathered the rainwater from in the winter time, if you like, how does it manage when the tank's actually full and it needs to be either pumped out, and where does that pumped out water go into the stormwater drain? I actually just don't know about how the mechanics of how it does work. It's okay until the 2,000 litre tank fills up, but if we get another X amount of rain and it gathers from where does the excess go? How do we manage that piece? Is what I was thinking about, but I just don't know enough about it to perhaps think that through in an urban planning setting. But I think there might be some opportunities to have some of those workshops, and that might give us an indication of actually how much new renewed interest there might be in our community for this type of sustainable option for gardens, and in times of when we've got restrictions on and you can't do your gardens and you want to, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Thanks, Hamish.
Madam Chair, could I just note for the sake of clarity that you couldn't connect your rainwater tap to your drinking water supply? There can be no crossover between the two.
Yeah.
So, you have to keep it entirely separate.
The outflow would go just like into the store, into the stormwater anyway, wouldn't it? Because if
Yes.
it was coming off the roof, it'd be going into the stormwater, if it's going through the tank.
Yep.
Would go into the stormwater. I think 200 litres is really quite symbolic. It's symbolic, it's 200 litres won't take you long to water your gardens, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
So it's a symbolic thing. Don't want it, I have hundreds of pumps and it's gonna be great for pump guys in town because so symbolic.
So would 2,000 litres, sorry,
Oh,
Madam Chair, would be a difference?
Yeah,
I think-
2,000. Well, it depends how much it rains, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, well, that's the issue.
Because it doesn't take long. Try it yourself, turn a tap on and fill up 200 litres or 20 litres and then work out how many minutes of watering time you've got in your garden. It's quite symbolic because but if someone wants to put 2,000 litre tank in and put a pump in, fill your boots, but don't make it mandatory. And in Tauranga and that, I've seen it, they do it, and people do it and collect water. And then you're making that decision because if you want to keep your garden green, you've got water. I don't think 2,000 litres is going to keep your lawn dry in summer, because it takes a lot more water in a 2,000 litre tank that you're only filling up once. So it's garden use.
Thanks for that, Dave. Thank you, Hamish.
So if you have typically a 200 square metre roof and you get 5 millimetres of rain, that would produce a cubic metre or 1,000 litres of water for harvest. But typically, if you're going to irrigate your lawn in the middle of a nor'west day, and you've got 500 square metres of lawn
At 5 mils.
you'll blow through that very, very quickly indeed. In fact, you won't get 5 mils, you'll only get 2 mils, but 500 square metres of lawn.
And remember, the rain you're collecting to put in that 2,000 litre tank is coming in the winter. The amount of rainfall that you get in December and January is, might be.
It's a logical implication of.
But it's a symbolic thing if people want to have a tank and collect it, and to me, have some emergency water there for when there is an earthquake and you can't go down and buy a bottle of water. Maybe that's a good idea, and have a it's like us rural guys get round to having a tap halfway down your tank to be able to get water out, because when you've got an emergency, you ain't got power, you haven't got power to run the pump. So it's just make it that people can do it if they want to.
I was interested actually in your comments, Madam Mayor, too, around the stormwater, and I was thinking the collection of it in a heavy rain event could alleviate our stormwater system as well, but then I also have that wondering. Councillor McPherson, I see that you've got your hand up.
Look, I'm not keen on making this mandatory at all. I do think it's up to the individual homeowner as to if they wish to have the advantages of having extra water storage. But I do think perhaps we could look at some form of incentivisation, whether it be not a rates rebate, but whether it be, I don't know, some kind of discount on purchase of tanks or something similar, but it's definitely not mandatory as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you for that, Councillor McPherson. So, sorry, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say, personally, I would prefer it mandatory because I do think that it is symbolic, but it's in the right direction. But also the other thing is fire. At least there is a water supply on hand, handy in the event of fire outbreaks, and I think it'd be quite useful if most houses, or particularly new houses, actually had a supply of water handy in case of fire.
But disagree, Tom, but giving me pump and go and pump, and we probably need a couple of thousand or 5,000 litres of water to be. Time you hooked up your pump onto your 200 litre tank, you might have pull out nothing. It'd be better to have a fire extinguisher.
Thanks, Hamish.
So, it's a good idea to get access to water, but, in order to do that, you'll need to put proper fire couplings on, so that the, fire brigade can hook up to it, and it will need to be away far enough from the house, if it's a house that's on fire, that, that they can access it. So in rural areas, requirement is to have 45,000 litres with the couplings and a hard stamp for the truck to get on it, and it has to be at the entrance to the property, so that you know they don't have to go past the burning house to get to it. So it's a nice idea. So I mean, if you had a standard 25,000 litre tank and you had 500 square metres of lawn that you wanted to irrigate, that would give you 50 millimetres of water per square metre. So you know, it might keep you going for a couple of weeks in a nor'wester. I don't know what dairy farmers put on, Dave, but probably you're looking to 7 millimetres, something like that per.
Half a litre a second per hectare. So we do it backwards. There's, I think it's 5 mils of, you put 5 mils on a day, but it's half a litre a second.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of water.
So the evapotranspiration that you get in nor'wester can be over 10 mils getting sucked out of the ground per day.
It's good for your gardens.
Yeah, right, yeah, so for, I guess, growing food, which, you know, given the threat of climate change, perhaps, you know, may be important. Thanks, Madam.
Yeah, no, I think, look, I still think there is a good, there's an opportunity to test the willingness of the community, and I'm certainly not thinking that it needs to be a mandatory thing, but if it does, I guess, incentivise people to consider the collection of rainwater for their garden use, if that's their personal desire, I think it would be quite good to test the community to see whether there is a willingness for us to go further with this. You know, I'm not saying we need to go out and have these tanks here and people can buy right now, but I think there is a real desire for people to do the right thing. And it might not get them through the heat of the entire summer, but it actually might allow them to, you know, maybe not water their garden, but water their vegetable garden, water their lawn, but their vegetable garden. You know, I mean, I think we've got to give people an option.
Yeah, I mean, I sense that the flavour around the table is that there isn't an appetite for anything mandatory at this stage. Generally, but actually I was really pleased to see this paper because it's really responsive to, you know, the submitters that did come and talk about it, and I tend to be in agreement with you, Madam Mayor, that, you know, you pointed out the Tauranga City Council. I wonder, just thinking about the recommendation, and I don't know if anybody's of a mind to have a think about what the committee might recommend to council, but it may well be that actually we need that information of understanding what the appetite in the community actually is, and that, I don't know, maybe that can be gained through having those information and advice sessions. Thanks, Councillor.
Madam Chair, I was just looking at the table at the bottom of page 15. Thinking about your points, Tom. Obviously, the Hanmer Springs rainfall is much higher, and I might be wrong about this, Tom, but I imagine some folk will have sections of a reasonable size in Hanmer Springs, so we'll have space for a tank and so on. I wonder if you're going to test something, whether that might be an area that's worth testing it in, given that the rainwater is higher. I suppose maybe you need to pick an eastern side one as well, you know, like Amberley or Cheviot or something, so you're contrasting. But, you know, just thinking about for emergencies, and I take your point about the coupling for fire, but you know, the risk of fire with your forestry around and so on is, you know, aware is an issue there as well. Whether we could just float something, as you say, Madam Mayor, and see what the interest would be. I mean,
I think through the chair go, that could be quite useful, and then actually put the science there, that if you're gonna wanna have a tank to water your gardens, and you wanna have one tank to do these things, you gotta stick a 25,000 litre tank in the ground. So people actually know, and we're not leading them down a path thinking they're gonna get away with a 200 litre or 1,000 litre tank. So you actually know you wanna have it for fire, you need 45,000 litres. You wanna water your garden, probably 10,000 litres is gonna be fine, or 5,000 litres is gonna be fine. So it's telling them what, you know, rather than, it just sounds so trendy and zony. We're gonna put a 200 litre bloody tank beside your house and you're gonna fix all these problems. That's rubbish.
I'm just going to come back to Councillor Armstrong. I'm not sure that you've quite finished with your
I-
thread of thought there.
I think I had. I wasn't particularly. I mean, I like the idea of council exploring the idea of can they get, I don't know whether it's Haley's tanks or, you know, whatever, some with suitable range of tank sizes to do a wholesale deal, you know, to make retail prices of tanks a little bit cheaper or something like that as an incentive without it costing us anything, you know. But I like the idea of giving information so that people understand what size of tank they'd need depending upon what their usage might be, but also the issue around potable water, because a lot of people of my generation probably don't realise that you can't just go, I'll drink out of that tank I've been collecting off the roof sort of thing.
So, are you suggesting, Councillor Armstrong, perhaps, you know, an information type session or something along those lines, so that people can understand those intricacies around, you know, the size of a tank and the inability to connect for drinking water and whatnot before? Is that where you were going?
Yeah, I was thinking of testing that interest.
Yeah.
And if council could, you know, secure a discount, would that be attractive? What sort of information would people need to have in order to make an informed decision? And what outlay might that be financially and so on? You know, before we commit to going whole 9 yards of time and energy on it.
Sure. Okay, any further comments, or is there anybody who perhaps wants to test a direction in regards to our next steps? Give someone your hands. So there's been some discussion around, you know, finding out what the appetite of the community is through information sharing and perhaps workshopping.
The recommendation to council is that strategy committee consider on principle the concept of tank storage in an urban setting, because I think that's what we're doing, and but you know, we need to get the data to say what are the options and then what would be the benefits to that. That's not very good. Sorry, Abel. So, you know, but that's not. I mean, I think that's what we're hearing, that we recommend to council that on a principle that we explore some details around water storage for urban settings in a non-mandatory manner, and test that with the community.
Does that give enough direction for officers?
Not really.
No. To be a little bit more specific. So is it around exploration and principle and then going to something specific like and running information gathering given?
I think, Madam Chair, I think that in principle that is the bit sort of what it So I think if the desire is to run, like Tauranga have some sessions around options and test it with the community in that way, that's sort of easy to see how many people express an interest in.
I'm happy to move that because I think that's what I was
That's,
thinking.
So then we've got clear direction
Yeah,
about
okay.
running some
Yeah,
sessions in the community to see what interest there is
Yeah.
and what that interest is. So
Yeah.
if that's the recommendation,
That feels okay to me.
and I don't know that that actually needs to go to council, we can do,
No.
we can
Yeah.
just do that.
Okay, so,
Is it right?
Yeah. Get some words.
so I think where we got to is, we don't need to recommend to council because it's kind of, I guess, an information gathering step in between. That officers, arrange some rainwater harvesting information workshops across the district. Is that succinct enough? Are you happy with that? I think you were kind of the mover there.
Yeah.
We'll just do a pilot, you don't need to do that every week, because I'm pretty sure I know what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I don't wanna waste time.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Hammer Springs and Amberley, you know, if we, that we consider the Tauranga example of gathering some information and providing that to the Hammer Springs and Amberley community to test their assumption of, you know, water storage on urban properties.
Yep.
Okay. Is that succinct enough?
Yep, so have we got some words around that, Eva?
Is that okay, Judy?
So I think what you were suggesting is that sorry, I was reading back in the paper, but isn't it what you're comfortable with is that the information at 21, which is where you sort of started, that the council offer rainwater harvesting workshops in Hammer Springs and Amberley to provide information and advice about rainwater harvesting, tank selection. And then leave it at that, and then
Report back.
report back.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
to garner appetite.
Oh, to say, and report back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, shall we hear that and see if the mover is happy with the words?
Okay, so we've got the strategy and community committee recommends that officers arrange rainwater harvesting workshops in Hammer Springs and Amberley to provide information and advice on rainwater harvesting and tank options and report back to the
Okay, and just alongside that, are you happy to include point number 1, noting the advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah.
Or do we want to split those?
No, I think we've done that in the sort of gathering to get reports. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so someone who's willing to second it? Oh, look, told you.
Not
Yeah,
necessarily.
Karen, I'll take that. Okay, so any further comments, discussion or questions in regards to the motion on the table? Okay, shall we just hear it once more just to make sure that, so we've got notes the advantages and disadvantages of different approaches to promoting household rainwater collection and water conservation more generally, and
the strategy and community committee recommends that officers arrange rainwater harvesting workshops in Hamner Springs and Amberley to provide information and advice on rainwater harvesting and tank options and report back.
Vanessa, you're comfortable with that? Okay, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, abstentions, carried. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Pleased to see that we've followed up on those on that submission topic from the long-term plan. Okay, so I'm going to invite Andrew to the table in regards to item 2.2, which is the submission on the sale and supply of alcohol on NZ Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day. Welcome, Andrew. Page 25 in your agenda.
I'm just wondering, given that I brought this topic to the DOC meeting, I just wanted to clear that it was raised with Tom and I actually from my constituent, but I have no party other than reporting that through, so I just wanted to be clear about that.
Yep. Thanks for that, Madam Mayor, and I did hear it at the beginning, but I was party to that discussion, but have had no part in the submission as well.
So thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, as set out in my report, Parliament's Justice Committee is calling for submissions on an amendment to the sale and supply of alcohol bill, which would allow licensed businesses already permitted to open on the identified holidays to sell alcohol under their usual licence. The Council's submission sets out that generally we support the proposed bill, although we do note some concerns about effects that loosening up restrictions on off licences may lead to increased harm. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you, Andrew. So that you've all got the draft submission in front of you, and hopefully having read that. Any questions?
Question if I may, we're staying neutral on the off licence, but the licence, the section in the Act currently is around people dining and consuming a substantial meal on the off licence. Can you just clarify for me this? Could I go into a bottle store in those premise and buy as an off licence anyway on those days?
Not at present. I
No.
think section 48 of the Act that manages off licences.
Yeah.
So
It's excluded.
I think it's 47 and 40. 47 and 48.
Yeah.
So 47 is for on licence.
Yeah.
48 is off licence, and both have been repealed. I think there's restrictions on what can open on those public holidays. In any case, I'm not certain that off licences can open, other than perhaps Foursquare or supermarket that might sell beer and wine, and on Easter Sunday without it recently adopted.
Yeah,
bylaw.
yeah, I was just going to say that. Does that give?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just more thinking about being neutral on the off licence, and I wonder whether we should remain neutral or whether we should not support the off licence part and keep the off licence part to the current law. That's my thinking, you know, and I don't know whether you could do that, Andrew, but I wonder whether I totally support the on licence component of what this is seeking. But I just wonder whether the off licence part should remain as the status at the moment. And whether there is interest to indicate that we play with that. I don't know, just a thought.
See what we get on the table.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the off license part. Is that one of the considerations in here is the benefits to our wineries, and it would put them at a disadvantage if the wineries were able to open up for sampling and drinking their produce, but then you can't actually buy a bottle of wine to take away with you. You know, one would hope that, you know, if you travel all that way to a winery and you can go and taste that beautiful wine, and then you can't buy a bottle to take away with you, it does feel a little bit, that would feel very
Thank you.
Okay, Gonna go to Vanessa. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. Through the chair, look, I totally agree with Tom. I think we can't have one without the other, and I fully endorse the submission as read. I probably would even go so far as speaking in favour of the off licence, but I'm happy for it to remain neutral. On that basis, I'm actually very happy to move the officer recommendation.
Okay, thanks for that, Vanessa. Any further discussion, or is someone of a mind to second?
I'm happy to second that. I certainly see, sort of with my tourism board hat on as well, that it would, you know, it would be really helpful if businesses, you know, whose industry this is, could conduct themselves in a way that visitors would expect them to, you know, being able to sell them something to drink with their meal, or as Tom says, to take away. I mean, I think a lot of people that come to taste our wines, part of the point of it is they want to be able to buy some to take away to their cellar or something, you know, and it sort of defeats the purpose of, as Tom says, if they can taste them and not buy them. So on that basis, I'm happy to second that motion.
So does that motion remain neutral on off licenses, or does it allow off licenses to be treated the same as bars and wineries?
So my understanding is that Vanessa will correct me if I'm wrong, that she moved the motion to as it was written, which is that we support on licenses and are neutral on off licenses. Is that correct, Vanessa?
Yes, it is.
You're happy with that, Karen, as seconder? Questions, comments?
Just a comment, I'm very comfortable with the recommendation as it's been written, but I did raise it because actually the sales supply is all about not increasing alcohol harm. I think it's good that we've tested that assumption, so that's my reason for raising it, but I'm very happy with the discussion.
Yeah, well raised. Okay. In that case, I will put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Carried. Thank you very much, Andrew. And thank you for your work on that submission. Right, Stephanie, I welcome you to the table. Page 31, we have an update on our bylaw reviews, which are upcoming this year, public places in Northern Pegasus Bay.
Good morning. So this is just to, as you said, update on some bylaw reviews that are occurring at the moment. I'll take the report as read and just briefly summarise. The public places bylaw you're familiar with. This is the one that manages parking, trading and other activities in public places, protects the public from nuisance and maintains public health and safety. So we are partway through that process. You may recall I held a workshop last November which discussed the various issues to do with that. And on page, I think it's 32 of the report, it has the steps that have been undertaken so far, including that workshop. And so now we're at the drafting stage, then we'll do legal review, consultation questions and various submissions. So that's where that one is at. Northern Pegasus Bay bylaw, which you wouldn't be as familiar with in terms of officers discussing it, that is just starting that review. So it is now due for its 10-year review. It came about in 2010, the first bylaw. It was first reviewed in 2015, and now it's due for its 10-year one. In the report on page 32, paragraph 7, I have got what the purpose of that bylaw is. I'll just read that out. So it's to control activities and use of land on the foreshore, beaches and adjacent areas of Northern Pegasus Bay in order to manage recreational uses, including camping and the use of horses and vehicles, for the benefit and enjoyment of all users and to minimise environmental impacts of activity. So that is the purpose that's taken from the bylaw. Just for context, you're probably aware why Makariri District Council has their own Northern Pegasus Bay bylaw. They were done at the same time in 2010 and 2015. They have now done their 10-year review, and their new one came in November last year. And that was about an 18-month process to get that through. Page 33, just set out the steps undertaken and current and next steps. So as I said, we're at the very start of that process, basically gathering information at the moment. Next steps will be site visits by officers and compiling all the issues. This bylaw, we do have a number of customer services requests we've received over the last 10 years, so just analysis of that and kind of what the issues are, what the recent feedback is on that kind of thing, both from customers and internal as well. So some of the key questions will be, have the issues changed since the 2015 bylaw? Are there new issues that we need to deal with? Is the bylaw working as intended? So some quite big questions, so we're just starting to get into all that at the moment. In terms of the initial step that has to occur, so it's basically by 1st July this year, there's a step we have to do under the Local Government Act section 155, which is a determination of whether a bylaw is still the most appropriate way of addressing the perceived problem. So there'll be some officer work on that initial report of kind of bringing all that information together. Since writing the report, just to update, we are looking at potentially having a field trip with councillors on Tuesday, 3rd of June. So you can actually go out and see some of these issues for yourselves, but we're just kind of starting to organise that at the moment. That's, yeah, just taking in.
Great, thank you for the summary and the update. Right, any questions? Yes.
Thanks, Stephanie. Discussion with interested and affected parties. I remember we had a presentation with Kevin Roche and Caroline Harnett, or Caroline Elliott, sorry, it's another name. Yeah, sorry. And so are they deemed an affected party because they've got such an interest in that, you know, would we be speaking with them to garner their sort of
Yeah, so I'm just collecting up, yes, those kinds of people who have contacted council and anyone who's done customer service requests. It's not kind of an official affected as such, but more people who have an interest. I'm aware Kevin Roche did a deputation to the recent Southwold Committee as well about the unformed legal road issue. And I'm also aware, I think it was addressed to yourself and Hamish, the recent letter from Emily Leadership Association about the fund and just protecting that obviously, just so that will all feed into this process. It's very initial, it's not kind of formal discussions, but obviously I'll be contact reaching out to those people. Discussions go with them. And if you know of anyone, please send contact details my way.
And thanks, Stephanie had sent an email, I'm not sure if it went to all councillors, but just requesting if there were any groups or individuals who had a particular interest, if we could just pass on the details. Thanks, Karen.
Yes. From memory, and I may have this wrong, the deputation was partly addressing the difference between the Waimaka areas approach and our approach, and the fact that users were getting confused, if I can put it that way, about what the rules are, because over there it was one thing, over here it was something else. So obviously they've Waimaka have gone through their process and they've now implemented their revised version of the bylaw or whatever they did. I'm wondering if we do our process and we end up forming a completely different view that isn't kind of parallel or in keeping with theirs, won't we just be continuing the confusion and risking that some users will come to our area that might have lighter sanctions or, you know, whatever than Waimaka areas? You know, like I respect that we have to go through our process and we may end up with something different, but I just wonder sort of how does all that come into the mix and how do we navigate that? Because I feel like the communication to users and potential users of this whole space is quite important, isn't it?
Yes, thank you. It's a great question. That'll be all part of the mix, but yes, we may come up with.
So you will look at what they've done and put that into the mix.
Yeah, obviously what we're aware of what we've done and kind of the process that we went through, and we'll be talking to the Waimaka staff as well about how they approached it. I guess that will be just during the process quite important, kind of our local feedback and information, also what's happening at our sites, because there might be some issues that are different as well, but that will all be part of the discussion. And that comes back to, is the bylaw working as intended? I mean, are there new issues that are coming up? Yeah, as I said, it's quite a big one, lots of issues, so.
Yeah. I could just have a supplementary.
Absolutely.
Question and comment too. I'm assuming from what you've said, Stephanie, that Whangakuriri did choose that a bylaw would still be appropriate for them, but they've continued with it. And I guess that might. Also, I know that's something that you have to satisfy some criteria when you go, because the bylaw is still appropriate, but I suppose if they've got one that might influence our continuation in revision of the bylaw as well.
Through the chair, that is one consideration. I guess part of that determination whether it's still appropriate is you look at potentially other options as well. Sure. This is all obviously very initial, but whether is the bylaw working? Another option would be, do we just have a policy? Do we have a strategy? Do we maybe do a lot more compliance so that on the ground there's more information? There's kind of a whole load of different options, but yes, that would be considered as part of that. They didn't think it's appropriate. I guess if we didn't, we'd have one part of the bay that was managed by the one that wasn't. So I guess if we were proposing not to do a bylaw, how that would work on the ground, that's one of the things.
An intriguing piece of work.
We look forward to the process. Right, any further questions or comments in regards to those two bylaws?
Oh, just a thought. So if we do the field trip on the 3rd, will that be all councillors or will it just be this committee?
All councillors, I was
Yeah,
thinking.
good idea.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that summary. It certainly gives us knowledge of where we're heading and where we're at, which is great. Thanks very much, Stephanie. So is there someone of a mind to receive the information? Thank you, Tom. Someone to second it. Thank you, Dave. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Abstentions? Fantastic. Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, Liz. Saw you sneak in the room there. An update on the rapid numbering, page 35 of the agenda. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you'll be aware of the rapid numbering project. So Liz is here to update us on where we're at now.
So I won't go over the obvious stuff, but from when I last caught up with this committee, we held a joint campaign at the end of last year. And from the 21st of October to the 2nd of November, which was really successful, we had 80 number plates, rapid number plates were purchased during that campaign, and then there was a huge roll-on effect from that as well. So we did that after the campaign. We had people ringing up saying they'd seen the campaign material, and then they'd also their neighbours getting plates triggered them to purchase them as well. So during the period from when I last saw you, we've had 251 plates purchased, and most of those have rolled from the campaign through to now. So much on effect. Currently working with 43 property owners on rapid numbering. So they're working with them currently, and 17 of these properties contain multiple dwellings. So there's a bit of a process there. And then as far as the rapid number, last time I came to this committee, I discussed that I was working in progress with another signage company about rapid numbers. Well, that all went through, and that decreased the plate numbers from the 1 to 2 numbers from $42 to $22 plus GST, and the 3 to 5 plate numbers from 46 to 33 plus GST, and the other signage company followed in line with this. So we've also seen a big increase since the price of rapid number plates has decreased as well.
When did that price decrease take effect?
Pretty much just before the campaign. Yeah, in line with that. Yeah, so the future scope of this project is we're looking, well, we are going to run another rapid number campaign from July to August, and our campaigns is sort of driven towards can you be found in the dark. So we've sort of done, have you got a rapid number, can we find you? But the secret is lots of people have rapid numbers that are, you know, easily identifiable during the day, but you can't see them in the dark. So we're gonna drive that, and the best time to drive that is obviously over the winter period. So that's all in progress currently, working, and we're hoping to get our campaign partners that we had last time on board with us as well. We're working with new dwellings that are built on, through building consents that are built on properties in rural areas, getting the process record numbers for them. So that's currently that they pay at the building consent stage for record number, and then I work with them to allocate a record number to that property. And then working with team leaders and managers in regard to trying to get council owned property with record numbers as well. And then also continuing cold calling people and working on these research projects, just working my way through people that haven't got record numbers. Yeah, one issues we have identified so far is that properties we've been working with, we've been changing their record numbers, we've been updating the government agencies, and from here Google Maps pick up that information from LINZ, and then they extract that data and update their maps. LINZ can't tell us when they update it and how often it happens, and they can't get that information either. And seems to be, some cases seems to be updated quite quickly, in other cases there seems to be a huge lag, which of course has, in particular when you're naming right of ways, a huge roll-on effect those people. So yeah, I can't do much at this stage apart from I have been going and updating the maps, like notifying Google that this stuff's missing, that they already pick up the information at some point, but even with notifying them that the roads haven't been named or that these numbers are missing, it still doesn't seem to be happening any faster. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay. Are there any questions?
Right, thank you for that. Yeah, we experienced that when we renumbered for our record plate, but I can certainly attest to just driving around the district, like between here and home, I think there's 4 new ones, you know, and that one stretch of Douglas Road, and they're very easily seen at night, so that's great. Right, thanks for that update. That's right, questions, comments?
Just a couple of wee questions. Is there any resistance for the new homeowners, you know, that it's done at that building consent time? Is that problematic, or?
Yeah, through the chair, I haven't yet had any resistance to it. Maybe a little bit of discussion where there's multiple dwellings, and of course with multiple dwellings we're trying to encourage them to number the other dwelling as well.
Yeah.
So a little bit of resistance in that when we've had to renumber another dwelling. Existing dwelling, sorry, but not that it's got to a point where they've flatly refused.
Okay. Oh, that's pleasing, because this is kind of a strategic answer,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Really?
Catching them at the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. And I just wonder, you know, do we keep Craig Ritchie informed of, you know, how we're progressing, because he was just like such a champion, wasn't he? So does he know how well you're doing?
Through the chair. Yes, Craig keeps in touch with me, and I keep in touch with him to let him know when like campaigns and stuff are happening. He is quite, as a West Side note, he's quite passionate at the moment about trying to get other councils on board. And he did ask me about that the other day, and what the council sort of thought was about supporting that from our perspective.
So will we do that, or will you do that at the office?
Through the chair, I held a meeting last year where we had local emergency service come down, and we had someone from Selwyn and someone from Waimak come. We invited all the sort of local rural councils, well, not when I say local, like every, and we had a couple people from each council. Those 2 councils come, and it was good, and there were lots of similarities about the way we were rapid numbering, but for example Selwyn has rapid numbers, but the emergency services said perhaps they're not as visible as our ones, but they're there. Where Waimak doesn't have it, but they had noticed that a lot of the Waimak property owners have started using the ones that we've got. Yeah. And then it was just talking to them, so we provided them the information where we started out with our new record numbers to those officers. But I haven't heard of anything moving forward from that.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, well done at getting the price down and the ease of being able to do it, because that's what was stopping. My suggestion for other councils and that, we've got enough to do, they can do it. And the motivation sign company, you know, it would be in their interest to be advertising in the Huronui News, and maybe not as much as we need to do is promoting it in the Huronui News, and the Waimak cousins can see it. So. Delegate it out to them. Motivation sign company.
Okay, anything further? Is there someone of mine to move that we receive that information? Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Murray. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, abstentions, thank you, Liz. Yeah, that's a project that's been close to my heart, and so you know, well done, particularly as Dave's already noted on driving that price down, and you know that makes it, you know, more achievable. Fantastic. Safer people, safer communities. Excellent. Okay, Halja, welcome to the table, and you are here to give us an update on the climate adaptation work program, starting at page 40. Everything in one place, from Gleefield to Claverley to the climate partnership plan. I was saying to Judith earlier, it's great to have it all in one place. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I started in December 2024, so I've been spending the last couple of months getting up to speed on the work, and also getting used to the council systems and processes. I've taken that the report has been read, but key summaries on the things I've been working on the last couple of months. So just working up the coast, so Leafield Beach. So I started conversations with the president of the Residents Association, with the help of a few colleagues, and we initiated a conversation on dune planting. So yeah, and then with Emberley Beach, we initiated conversations with the residents on land banking and proactive relocation. And I think in the report has more details on the process, and I'm sure you've been appraised of the latest update on Emberley Beach. And with Mothnow Beach, I've organised a drone survey to make sure that the properties are not too near the cliff edge. And so the first three are part of the CAP, the Coastal Adaptation Plan implementation actions. And so you're probably aware that work with the Gore Bay community have been stalled somewhat because we needed to address two issues. So one of them is the cliff stability assessment. So we got Jacobs to carry out a desktop cliff assessment. So that's been underway and just kind of wrapped up a few weeks ago. And the other thing was we needed to address the flooding erosion issue at the mouth of Buxton Creek. So we got Jacobs also to look into that and put in a resource consent application to UCAN that's still pending. And so the other thing we actually set up was a citizen science project. And so setting up a couple of stands up the coast to get people to be involved, to get mostly locals to be involved, but anyone of the public who visit those areas can be involved, to be a bit more aware about what's changing on our coastlines with the photos that people take. So I've been sort of talking with the University of Canterbury to see how we can utilise the photos a bit more, maybe present it in a more visually appealing way to people, so to get them more interested for them to also understand what they're contributing to as well. And further on this month, I'll be talking to our community partnerships team on how to engage our local communities as well. And lastly, Purewa District Council is part of a wider regional partnership under the mayoral forum. So I'm working on climate change, and I sit on the working group leading the climate adaptation work. So I've been busy setting up a project team for that and having initial conversations with the project team members on how to approach the work. So that is in a nutshell what I've been doing, and probably a couple of photos to end the report. So if you see up on the screen there, that's Cleverly Beach, and this is the bund while it was still under construction. You may have already gone and seen the bund when it's completed, but maybe not from this angle. And next, yeah, this is just another angle showing how close the bund is to the sea, with wave section. And this is a recent drone survey, photo taken from the drone survey of Mopna. And so it just shows how nature is working with the cliffs really exposed to the elements and the houses there. And I think the last one is just update latest. When I say latest, some of the photos are from 2003 or 2004. So working from the left hand corner clockwise, that's Leafview. Two of the photos in the center is Leafview as well, and top right hand corner is Emily, and then bottom right is Mopna, and then Gorbay and Gorbay again. And one of the issues probably one of the challenges that I picked up was as we move up the coastline, the number of photos gets seen and gets lesser and lesser. So with Gorbay, there were only a couple of photos seen then through the app, and it was in 2024 last. Yeah, so one of the things that I'm working on is to get people to go there and take photos.
And I saw some promotion about that over the last week, actually, I think, yes.
So I'm happy to take questions.
Wow, thank you. That's a very fulsome report and first time to the table. So yeah, well done. Fantastic summary. Right, any questions for Hamilton?
Okay, number 22, the resource consent. So I'm talking about Buxton. It always comes up, and I just wonder where. Can you just give us an update on where that's at the moment?
Through the chair. So I've recently got an update from Jacobs, and ECAN has actually asked us for more information on that, and so Jacobs has asked us for more time and to respond to that query from ECAN, and they've asked us for more information regarding ecological processes and coastal processes. So Jacobs is handling that. So it may take 4 more months, maybe, hopefully not longer.
The application also was asked for an extension of time for the EV liaison. So while Monique had worked with Ngāti Kuri and with Nukuroa prior to lodging the application, they asked for more time for them to consider it, and it also went to MKL now, which was Ngāti Hariri, and originally I thought, well, it's not in the Takiwa, so why? But it's actually under the Marine and Coastal Act. They've made a claim, and so they're considered to be an affected party. Well, not an affected party, an interested party. So we've just got a little bit tangled up in that as well. and then this additional, this request for information, which is extremely frustrating, but we're working through that.
That's through the chair, so because councillor funding the application, is that
They are.
correct? Yeah, and so do the community have some sensitivities around, you know, do they know that we've got these delays and further information? Should we tell them or not? Should they be informed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we meet with the Cheviot Community Committee,
Okay, they'll get an
we'll talk, because there's a deputation about the cliff stability issue.
right, okay.
So I did give an update to the Community Committee to the February meeting on where things were at. But other than saying there's a request for further information, there's not really much more to say. I have kept councillor daily up to speed where we're at.
Okay, thank you. I just thought it's good to everybody to understand that. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
A couple of questions. I noticed that you say that thanks ever so much for your work. It's absolutely brilliant, and I think as was mentioned, you have everything going on. It's really handy. The use of the public taking photographs at specific places has dropped dramatically. There's not many people taking those photographs. Is there another way? I know that my son, when he goes out tramping to some fairly remote places, there's some Instagram sites where they specifically load photographs of specific spots on those tramps, pretty remote tramps. I wonder if there is another way of encouraging the public to be taking those photographs at those spots so that we can build up a database of regular change to the coastline.
True, Chair. Yes, there's actually a few options for people to send through the photos. So one of that is through an email address that we've provided on the stand. There's a sign next to the stand. There's also an app that is associated with Coast Snaps, and people can also post on social media as well with the hashtag. So that includes Instagram, and I believe some of the places are quite Instagrammable. But I think it's probably not to say an access thing, but it's probably some of the areas are a bit out of way for maybe the main public, and that's probably not on like a to-do list for people, but maybe we can explore having that promoted on our website, and maybe working with the local communities to own that a little bit more. And maybe some of them can regularly go and take photos at certain times, especially after storm events. That would be very helpful to us. We don't really need a load of photos, but photos showing change would be helpful, so that we can compile them and make them into something sensible for and to report back to the community as well.
The other question was, and I had to look this up, and I'm probably wrong on the pronunciation, but the plant that you use, is it Pingao? Pingao?
For restoration.
Sorry? It is Pingao. How, I understand that that's endangered. Is there a risk, or should we be encouraging the planting of it to reduce the risk of endangerment?
To the chair, so is this more in relation to the
planting of the trees?
I don't really know of the status of that, but my colleague Rima here.
Rima, could we get you to weigh in on this perhaps?
Through the chair, Pingao is very rare in certain sections of the coast. It would be great to have it planted on this coast, but it can't compete with marram grass. So wherever there's marram grass, that would have to be cleared out completely. And that's probably not a useful thing to do, because the marram grass does actually protect the dunes. So planting Pingao is on the Northern Pegasus Bay Coast Care Group's sort of to-do list, and they've chosen particular areas where it's sort of appropriate.
So it's not too badly endangered.
There are whole sections of the coast where it ought to be, but isn't. So as a plant itself, there are some places where it's quite prolific, you know, it grows all over Kaiteriki Spit, it's been one here, but it's very rare in this, on our section of coast, and it belongs here. And it's sort, the species are, behaves quite differently in different parts of the coast. So like Kaiteriki Spit, it's a particular type of pingao, not very useful for weaving, for instance, just the way it is. So whereas along our coast, the pingao that belongs here is a better quality for the weaving. So it does matter as to where it grows.
Thank you for that, Rama. Yeah, and good question. Okay, anything else for Hamza? Janice's all good online? She was having some trouble finding that. All right. Okay, so we're being asked to receive the information. Looking into the table, thank you, Karen. Someone to second, thank you, Tom. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. Thank you very much. Well done, first time to the table. A fantastic suite of information there. Okay, so we have just one more item on our agenda. So it's my intent now to break for morning tea. So sorry, I know you've been waiting patiently, Reba. Break for morning tea just for 15 minutes, and we'll come back just prior to 11 o'clock for that final item. Okay, and welcome to the table, Reba. As our Warren land coordinator, you're here to give us an update on the work that you've been doing.
Thank you, everybody. So first off, just talk about what's going on at the Birdsong project. You're aware of this project, it's going really well. Astonishingly well, to be honest. I'm amazed at what this community has pulled together. So far 4,000 plants have gone in, another 2,000 going in this season. So we've got 6 planting days planned, so 2 at the end of each of the following 3 months, and 1 on a weekday and 1 on a weekend, so that people can, it suits different people. So the Jo Lowe has been just a complete force of nature on this project. She is actually employed by the project to work for 4 hours a week on it, but she's doing way more than that actually. The latest thing has been to get the paths tidied up and gravelled where that's needed, and also to plan for the planting for this year. So I've been keeping the philanthropists up to date. They have a property up in Marlborough, so they're driving through every now and then, and they pop in and have a look, and they're amazed and very impressed with what's been done with the money that contributed. So far, at the end of this season, we'll be 3/4 of the way through the $100,000 they've committed to the project. So they're going to be looking for further funding. sort of to stretch it out, so we'll need to get funding committed now for the next 3 years, because we can't, if we can't look for funding once the money's run out, because if we don't get it, then things stall and so we can't report. The young people from the MPFJ program came out for a day's work. I was asked to put a day together for them to have a day of outside work, and a couple of these people apparently have never spent a whole day out of doors before, so
a great opportunity.
and the two of them particularly just found their place. They absolutely took to it and was surprised themselves with how much they enjoyed working out of doors, and so it was a fantastic experience, and they did good work. Next slide, please. So like this young man on the left here, he spent the whole day barrowing mulch from the pile to people and just slogged it the whole day, loved it. And everybody else put the mulch around the plants. So a local has contributed, I think, 8 large bales of mulch to the project. We're getting so much gifted to the project from local people. The community's been astonishing, actually. And so here we've got mulch for the next few years. Yeah, sure. There's a group called the Handy Landies that sort of came out of the group that got together from the earthquakes. What were they called? The student army. Yes, so they came out, it was a rainy day, and they just were offered to sort of pipe out and give it a break, but no, they put on their raincoats and worked hard. And down below there is the track. When they made the track, all the spoil was just chucked off to the side. That's been smoothed off and will plant where that bare dirt is. And just the wet parts of the track are going to get gravelled. But the concrete bridge that you see there down the bottom, that was donated as well. You know, so the 2 of the local farmers had a wee squabble over who was going to be allowed to dig our tracks for free, and someone else donated a couple of bridges, so that's how this community has really stepped up and just seen this project go forward in leaps and bounds. Okay, so it's now the Northern Pegasus Coast Care Group. The fence that they've put up there is to protect this little herb, Sabea ovata. It's an odd little situation. It's actually, we think it's the only population of that plant in the entire country. It was planted here by Doc from the North Island. It was in 3 different sites in the North Island that were under threat, and so they planted this as a sort of insurance site just in case the plant died there, and it did. So it's a little bit of an unusual situation because it doesn't actually belong here in the South Island, but we've got the only plants, so we're looking after them. That fence there is a rabbit-proof fence to make sure that they don't get munched by the hungry rabbits, because they look quite delicious. It's just a wee herb, just a little thing, you know. Nobody but a botanist would spot it, but there it is. So yeah, they put the fence around there. They also fenced, yep, that's fine. They fenced an area that where the birds, the ground nesting birds, would nest if it wasn't getting driven over by vehicles all the time. So they put this temporary fence around and put wee signs on saying bird nesting area and all of that. But somebody seemed fit to take the fence down, vandalise it, and then drive just all over the area. So they're going to re-fence it and with sturdier fencing, and just hope that, you know, eventually the message gets through. You know, they're not even allowed to drive in the dunes at all. There's a lot of driving, as you can see, all those tracks through the dunes. This dune area on Ashworths Beach is actually the only naturally intact dune system in the whole of Pegasus Bay. All of the other dune systems, like the ones around Christchurch, they've been recreated, but this is the natural one. This is, you know, has always been here, and it's getting completely destroyed by vehicles. And there are signs saying, don't drive in here, it's against the bylaw, but yeah, people still do. And it's really cranked up over the last couple of months. you know, somebody's obviously discovered this playground and they're just going for it, so that's it. But yeah, the Northern Pegasus Bay Coast Care Group, you know, hoping to sort of, yeah, put a bit of a, make the dunes, the area really loved and cared for, and hopefully there's a bit of a mentorship there, but we'll see what happens. So they're also still working on the track. I put forward that we actually have to name the track Kevin's Track, because that's been his 20-year project. So Caroline Elliott, unbeknownst to Kevin, is getting her brother-in-law to make a couple of signs for either end of the track saying Kevin's Track. So that's going up soon. He absolutely deserves to be recognised for that. That's happening. Next one, just been the Weedbusters, of course, that's just going great guns. Every month, a group of people go out and do some environmental weeding. And we've been all over the place. So this was on the death of this bunch. They did a reconnoitre trip down the Waipara River, because I knew from a previous walk that there was just some weed populations just getting going. If you get them at that stage, you know, you can prevent the sort of the situation we've got with Old Man's Beard now. So the chap on the left there is Miles Giller. He was the QE2 Trust rep for North Canterbury until recently. He's just retired, and he's part of the Weedbusters group. So he's our sort of plant guru, weed guru, knows the area, put the out and back to front. So he comes along and he spotted a area of sycamores that are just starting to take off. So we did a day on that. On the right there, we're working in the Greta Valley. So down by behind the Greta Valley Tavern, there's this reserve where the locals did a whole lot of planting with Mandy Earl, who got that going, and then she moved away and it just got left. So a new bunch of people in the community are starting to take care of it. So Weedbusters went in and we actually cleared the weeds and got it ready for the new group so that they don't have this great big job to get started on. So that was a really nice thing. We had a lovely day at Port Robinson. We try and make our days out enjoyable for people, and that wasn't hard in that kind of setting. So behind the group there is an area that's been planted again for about 20 years by the local community, and there's just some Old Man's Beard getting going in that. So a local man, Andrew Ashley, he organised for us to go through his property, and yeah, we went down and it was a bit of a go track. And so we've sort of got the A team. We've got the team that are okay to sort of end up in muddy, gnarly, difficult spots, and so it was the A team that day. We're going to invite sort of the general public along to the more difficult sites. So we did it that day. Yeah, next one please. So on the left there, that was day before yesterday. We were in the Hutchinson Reserve in Cheviot, just beside Cheviot there, the Jed River group. And it's a bit of a classic situation. The community will turn up for planting days, but the maintenance can get left behind a bit. So one woman, Heidi, she was basically has been doing the weeding herself mostly. So we came along with 6 of us and did a big chunk of the weeding for her. So we will put there's willows further up the stream there, so the bits of the willows sort of drift down the stream and take root. So we're putting out willows and hawthorn and plum and all sorts of sort of the trees that are starting to get going. This is an interesting project. They're really committed to doing their whole restoration chemical free. And so you see in the background there's all that weed matting that is covering the willows. So they cut the willows down and then covered them with weed mat so that the sprouts won't resprout and the wood trees won't regrow. And it's been really successful. It's where the weed mat hasn't quite covered it. They've been getting some sprouts through, so we've cut those back and they'll recover that. So that's it's an experiment and it's working. It's a lot more work than just going in with chemicals, but that's what it's the ethos of that group. And you know, there are people in that group who wouldn't be joining in if they were using chemicals. So it's just sort of adapting to what the community wants actually and what the people who are putting in the work. So on the right there is Francois, one of our weed busters. He's looking for sycamore trees, and amongst all that's a patch of weeds and old man's beard and all sorts of other stuff. But we've lost the fight with old man's beard for most places, but sycamore is one that we can still keep on top of. It's an enormous problem on Banks Peninsula, and we don't want it to get like that. So we try to nail it before it gets to that stage and really takes on.
Now we've got Councillor McPherson coming in online, and I just know she's got a question. It might be in relation to weed busters, so we might take that now, Vanessa.
Hi, through the chair. Hi, Rima. Can you just highlight what the issues are around the sycamore, please?
They grow wild. So, I mean, sycamore as a tree is fantastic. It's beautiful, but it doesn't stay put. So, like on Banks Peninsula, I was working on a restoration planting by a river, which is all well and good planting, but the landowner beside has got some natives that's got sycamore all the way through it, and the seeds blow around in the wind. So what the restoration group are going to have to do forever now is weed sycamores in their newly planted patch, because the sycamore's right next door. And so, we've got trees that don't do that, and we need to plant those. We need to plant trees. Exotics are fine, that's all well and good, but we need to plant trees that don't jump the fence and take off and go where they're not needed or wanted.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just been meeting with the Huranui Trails Trust. They're really committed to creating biking and walking and riding trails around the district. They've been focusing around the Hanmer area for a long time, but their focus has shifted to more our area. So I've just been meeting with them. So when they start planting, I'll be able to help them with their planting plans. And it's good for me to know where they're going to be focusing their energies as well. So just keeping in touch with those guys. The Blythe Catchment Group is amazing. This is a community catchment group, and they have got every landowner in the catchment committed to their project. And it's a huge catchment. I've forgotten how many hectares and how many properties, but it's a lot. It's a big catchment. And so the project is being driven by Richard Shaw. He's and that's what you get with these community groups. If you've got one person who's got the energy and the drive, to marshal all the resources in the district, that's where you get success. And Richard's again a real force of nature. He's got loads of energy, very motivated, and they have a property that they bought lifestyle block, and they bought the farm next door, and they're doing a lot of restoration on that farm. They've had it air fenced, and so we had the Huranui District Land Care Group organised a field day with the Blythe Catchment Group, and about 52 people came to learn about trapping and restoration planting, and to sort of plug into what this group are doing. Next slide, please. So they've been incredibly successful with their trapping program. I think 1,200 predators taken out in the last year, and Richard is showing a trap. This is an automatic possum trap. You set it, you can leave it for 6 months, and it just keeps killing possums. And you end up with a pile of dead possums underneath, and that's absolutely no deterrent. They climb over the dead bodies of the previous lot and go in there and get knocked out themselves. So he had about 8 from his last week's kill. So they're incredibly effective and great for community groups, because you don't have to keep putting in the energy to go and clear it. You just need to check it out every now and then. So yep, he was just showing me they're about $500 each, but they're 5 times more effective than the $100 traps. So the math actually does work. So I was just asked to check out whether the Greysons Road site would work as a dog park, and in relation to the planting that the community have done on this site already, you know, you can't go turning an area into lawn. So I just went out with Cameron from the property team to see if this could be managed in regard to the plantings. And I think if this was chosen a dog path, we can move with tracks through and have native areas and lawn areas. So just to make sure that it was feasible on that. Next, please. Last year I was asked to advise on the planting. The Leithfield School put in this great big ramp, and there were the areas beside the ramp. They wanted native plantings, and I advocated to have dryland plants that are native to our district, because there's a whole suite of plants that belong in our district that have a particular look about them, do well in the dry, hot climate here. And so that's what they've planted here, and it's taken off really well and looking great. So at the opening of the Leithfield, the first day of the Leithfield School, the first school day this year, I was asked to come along, and the school gave me a big clap and a thank you to the Taranua District Council for being involved. Lovely. I'm still hoping to find people who will want to start a native plant nursery in Amberley, a community plant nursery. Haven't sort of located any people yet, but I'm doing the research to find out, you know, what's involved. So I went to visit the Little River Living Streams nursery, and this was a nursery that was started by 4 women who just started propagating plants, you know, in a wee patch behind the local post office, and it has expanded. They produce hundreds of thousands of plants every year now. So it was a real example of a project that starts at a particular scale that the community was happy with, and it's just been growing at the pace that the community, that's guided by the community. So that was really good to see. And so yes, I'll keep looking out for people, and once we find people, I'll have an idea of how to get them going. So that's the plan on that one. Next, please.
Through the chair. Tim Kelly and Taranua College. Start nursery. The school will plants, so it's girls that will want to do it. They would definitely want to.
Through the chair. I met with Tim Kelly probably about 2 years ago. Told him the nursery project. So thanks for that. I'll go back to him and see if there's anything I can help with there. Hodgin talked about the June planting at the Leithfield Beach there, so we've done a field trip there. I've recommended that for the most part they plant Nio there. It's a seaside tree, it does really well, it's proven its worth on Kevin's plantings, it's cheap. These plantings, if the encroachment of the sea carries on like it is, they won't be long-lived plantings, they'll just be, they'll hold back the energy of the sea for a while, and that's as much as we can hope for them to do. So we're not going to put in expensive plants and put a whole lot of energy in there. Elliott's Nurseries is willing to help us grow Nios, because that's Caroline Elliott, who's in the Northern Pegasus Bay Coast Care Group. She's it's her and her husband's business, so they're happy to help them support. And what we're looking at is getting community buy-in for this, and giving the community little plants to grow on, and then to plant themselves, because you know the community are going to need to look after these plants. We'll be planting in amongst the marram grass and ice plant, because we don't want to clear the area, because the plants are doing a job there to protect the dunes. So we'll plant in amongst, which means that whoever plants those plants will hopefully will care for them and stop the weeds from encroaching. So we're looking at which plants are appropriate and how to get some community buy-in. So Hodgin is working with the community there. So there's this little patch of bush in the Amberley Domain that was planted about 30 years ago, and it's needing some TLC. So Weed Busters went in there and we cut out a lot of the weed trees that are getting going. So there were things like there are some beech trees there, like 30 years old, teenage beech trees looking really nice, but completely swamped over by the tree lucerne that's in there and covering, and there's plum getting going, all sorts of weed trees. So we did a great big clear out of the weed trees. And the next thing that I want to do is organise a working bee with the community to actually do just a big tidy up, pull out some more of the weeds and the piles of branches. Some of the trees have fallen down in the gales of a year and a half or so ago. So next thing is to have a community working bee for tidying up. And I've got a woman in the community who's keen to, actually 2 or 3 who are keen to help out with that. And when we were working there, people were walking their dogs constantly. Like one guy came by and said, "We absolutely love this bit of bush. Tell us when you're having your working bees, we'll come along and help." And just really love the fact that we've got this little patch of natives there doing well. You know, it's just a moment in the bush for people who are walking around the park, and it's obviously really well appreciated. So we'll do a tidy up, and then once we've got it tidied up, I'll figure out which plants can be planted in the gaps, and we'll have a planting day as well. So yeah, just a local came to me and said, "Look, we helped plant this 30 years ago, and I'm really sad about how it looks." So yeah, I said, "Look, let's do something about it." So we keep going. So. I mentioned great willow herb last time I was talking. This is a weed that's a wetland weed. It's really fast growing. It's hugely invasive. Each plant puts out thousands of wind-borne seeds that just go all over the place. ECAN are trying to confine it to Canterbury, and the hotspot is actually North Canterbury. They've got somebody based here working on it. I spotted this lot at Amberley Lagoon, so I've spotted two new sites and have reported them to ECAN, and one of the locals from the North Pegasus Bay Coast Care Group, she spotted one as well. So yeah, just letting ECAN know whenever we see some. This is actually on docklands, so it's dock. But once it's got to this stage, it's just about ready to set seed and off go with seeds. So yeah, it's don't know if it's going to be able to be kept under control, but it can feel very responsible to try not to spread this weed, allow this weed to spread to other districts, other regions. So yeah, really try to keep an eye on it. It gets spread around the wetlands on people's vehicles, on people's clothes, their boots. We're finding it in all sorts of odd places where it's a long way from any others, so it's getting spread by people. And I had a display in the library of flowers of the Whanganui district. Can you just slowly go through the next few slides? It's, people don't realise that, our native plants have got these beautiful flowers. The one on the left, that's the next one here. The one on the left is the mountain daisy, grows on top of Mount Cass. The one on the right grows in our wetlands. Actually, yeah, the previous slide. The one on the left is a forest clematis. The one on the right grows on our beaches. Yeah, next one. The left is a mountain day. It's like a straw flower, little everlasting daisy. Gorgeous wee thing. On the right is the native broom that grows like I've seen one in a garden in Christchurch that was half as high again as the person's house. This beautiful tree broom, all in flower, and it grows in the Clarence sort of river area. It's a real hardy dryland native plant. I think we should have a bit more of that around the place. Tree fuchsia's growing all over the bush, there's loads of it on Mount Cass, and the red mistletoe belongs in our beech forests up, there's a lot of it around the Boyle River still. It's much loved by possums, so it's really important to have possum control when you've got red mistletoe. And the lovely thing about the tree fuchsia is you can see on the anthers there, the pollen is blue, and in the springtime you can see bellbirds which are sucking the nectar out, and they've all got blue on their foreheads because of the blue pollen. So it's sort of indicated that the bellbirds are out there doing their job. That's me.
Fantastic, goodness me, your work is vast and varied across our district. It's very, very interesting, and I must admit I had a good amount of time having a look at your floral display down at the library. It was there in April. Yeah, quite interesting actually. Okay, questions, comments? It's a lot of information that you've given us about a very busy work program.
Wilding Pines.
Yes, we're going to Leslie, no, which is the one with the walk on it? Is it Leslie Hill Station? Yeah, they've got a QE2 covenant. Island Hills, that's the one, yes, Island Hills. They've got a QE2 covenant and they're getting Wilding Pines coming into the covenant. So when we're not taking on the big stuff with Wilding Pines, it's just such a huge issue around Henma, but spotting a little area like a QE2 covenant that's got it going, and that's the sort of this bite-sized project that we can take on. So that's what we're coming from that, and it's the next month's event is the one after we're going.
Just through the chair, it just reminds me, how's that cheese cutter project? Drone project.
Got very quiet, very quiet.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Gone past April 1st and
Anyway.
All right.
Moving on.
It's all right.
Any further questions from Rayma?
It was mine, it was technology, wasn't it?
Murray.
Yeah, no, it's really just a comment, because actually what I've heard throughout your report today is the volunteer groups that are so active, and quite often, with all due respect, Amberley or Southwood kind of gets a bad rap because, you know, we haven't got as many volunteers, but actually there's a huge amount of volunteer work being done that actually we don't identify or name, and so I just think we need to recognise that as well, because, you know, I think it, you know, from Southwood or Amberley, you know, it is it's often the commentary that we hear, but it's certainly not evidence in this report. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Our Southwoodians.
Yeah, protecting you back.
In the past life, I used to have a bit to do with call it PD, periodic detention boys and girls. So they're pretty good at weeding, doing weedings and working, because probation really do struggle to find things really good. And if you think you have those people doing it, and you teach them the respect of what it's about, they help to protect. You know, they understand it. So, you know, I'm just thinking of Ashworth Beach and that, and work with probation and say, well, you know, work out what you want done.
Through the chair, one of the plantings at Gressons Road, we did have the PD workers come along, and I should follow that up because the person who was organising it said that it's actually a really positive experience for the people. They do good work, but they also love getting out in the environment.
And it was really heartening to hear you talk about the youth task force team, and you know those young people who actually haven't experienced that and actually found something that might you know lead them on a pathway in life. I think that's really cool. That's really awesome. Okay.
Oh, just happy to move the information be received.
Thank you for that, Dave. Are you seconding? Thank you for your hard work, because you know, and it's not a full-time role, and you certainly cover a lot in the, I think it's 20 hours, isn't it? Yeah, and your passion for biodiversity as a whole. yeah, we certainly hear it and see it. So thank you. Right, all those in favour, please say aye. Anyone against? Abstentions. Okay, so we didn't have in our agenda the work programme. Oh,
Sorry, I just had a question, and it's just, I've just remembered, sorry.
Sorry, Rima.
I'm just going back to the bird song, sorry, I meant to have it, yeah. So you've got a plan on where to access some funding, like, you know, have you got, are you looking for rata or, you know,
Yes,
like,
so,
I was just wanting to make sure that, I know you'll have it, but I just can't understand what it was.
So, through the chair, we're approaching RATA, so I've had 2 conversations with RATA already, and our project fits their criteria because it's a community project and it's biodiversity, so having the 2 together is a really good fit for them. And they fund big stuff, and to give big funding, they like you to have funding already. They don't give it. So the fact that we've already had our $100,000 input, they like you to have at least a third first. So I'm thinking, oh, another 200,000, but we probably won't get to that. But
Yeah, but it's, sorry, through the chair, is that the type of funding that you're looking for, like another 100,000 or more?
Yeah, that's
Something
right.
like that's
Yes.
what you're
Well,
aiming for.
what we're going to ask for is 20,000 for the next 3 years, which will see us for the next 3 years and that will mean that we won't need to spend all of the money that we've got as well, because what we don't want is to find ourselves with a season with nothing.
Okay, no, that's great, sorry.
No. It's, it was it's such an in-depth report that you're probably holding on to that question from the first part. Yeah. So thank you for coming back to the
Through
table.
the chair, the funding landscape is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So the funders come and go, and like suddenly we heard that there was the Air New Zealand fund closing in a week, you know, and suddenly everybody's scrambling around to get a funding application in within the week. So part of my job was to just keep my ear to the ground.
That's great. That's great. Well, we look forward to hearing about how that might be enabled to continue. Thank you, Rima. So we didn't, as part of our agenda, have the work programme, but Judith has kindly offered to do a very quick oral update on the work programme so that we all understand fully where we're at, although we've had some good updates with the bylaws and coastal.
Yes, so I'm just going to work through our version of the work programme, which for the next meeting will be turned into a table for the committee. So bear with while I sort of go across this table. So the first 2 items on there are the public places bylaw and the Northern Pegasus Bay bylaw, which you've had an update on. So that work is underway. The next one is the gambling policy, which is due for review and looking at allocating resource to that one. Freedom camping, this is Andrew's favourite topic, and he's done considerable amount of work. Can't wait for the council workshop, which I think is next week, to work through the issues. So yeah, you can all look forward to a very exciting workshop on that one. Have I sold it well enough there?
Yeah, I won't be here.
You'll be running.
I won't be here either. The next one is an internal policy, which is the compliance, monitoring and enforcement policy. Well overdue for review, just working out how we might go about doing that. So it was initiated in 2010. I think the last adoption was 2014, so well over 10 years since we've actually looked at that policy. May fit in with some of the RMA reform where they're looking at approaching compliance. They call it CME, compliance monitoring and enforcement. So that one's on the work programme. Another one is the review of the development engineering standard and a review of the Hurunui District Plan transportation chapter. So this is 2 documents, a district plan and a engineering standard that needs to be tidied up in terms of alignment, so there is some conflicts between the two documents. So work is underway on both. The next one, and this is something that Nicola will need to report back to the committee on, is the South Ward Spatial Plan. So there's a series, there's a work, it's an action plan, and there's a series of work that's been identified. In the first project we're looking at is the town centre plan. So looking to initiate that in this financial year.
Sorry, in the 24-25.
Yes. Yeah, it's budget year, so we need to keep crack on with that one. So yeah, master plan for the development of Central Amberley. Some other sort of policies, asbestos risk management policy just needs, that one's going to come back to the executive team. That's an internal policy. Another one is the operation of drones over council reserve land. Just need to review that in light of the Cheviot helipad and the Springs helipad. So that one's been identified to have a look at. Forestry policy is well overdue. They're sitting with Jason Beck. Sustainability strategy, so coming to the next council meeting will be the emissions budget, it's called. How would it? Yeah, so that will be coming to
greenhouse gas emissions budget.
Yeah, so that's coming to the next council meeting, and then there's some work being done on a sustainability strategy. That one's suffers from no allocated resource into it. And the only other one on there is the tree management policy. That one's well down the priority list for review. The other thing that we're looking at is watching with interest the national policy statement on Indigenous biodiversity and the need for the SNA assessments. So put money in the budget for 500,000 for 3 years, so a total of 1.5 million. Won't start that work unless we get some certainty from the government as to what's going to happen with the RM reform. Not a lot of point going down that path, and similar to district plan review, in terms of the timing under the RMA, we should be starting to think about a plan review, but it's another one that's little point in spending any money on a plan review if we're going to get a new legal framework. So just keeping an eye on what's happening there. Andrew's going to do a little bit of work on the Amberley reserves. Just thinking about, don't know whether you can recall this conversation, I think through the reserve management plan, where I talked about having a strategy for Amberley, identifying domain, village green, some neighbourhood reserves. We've now got the reserve in Saleyard Drive, and having a strategy to say what is the purpose of each of these reserves. So that's some work that Andrew's got on his work programme. Then there's some other things on there that are well down the list. But other key things that we're working on at the moment.
Just a few things then. Much appreciated that update. The work that you mentioned in regards to the South Ward Spatial Plan and the first project on the town centre plan and initiating that this financial year, getting fairly tight with timing.
Yes.
So will that come to South Ward Committee, or will that come to council, or both? don't recall seeing anything in the
No,
May
nothing,
agenda.
nothing
so
has
the
come,
final
so
picture-
it's going to be, just at the moment, Nicola is talking to, Barkers about kicking off that work. So the scope of that will need to, I mean, I guess what we're trying to do is secure the budget in this financial year, and so that we at least have started the project. The scope and how it's all gonna run, that's all still being worked through. So yes, it will come, well, it definitely will go to South Board and it will come to this committee. But it more as we're needing to secure that piece of budget. Otherwise it'll be lost.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for that explanation. All right, any questions or comments on the work program that we've had thoroughly? Oh, thank you for that. Awesome update. Okay, and so with that, then I will officially close the meeting at 11:44. Thank you, everybody.